I should probably start at the beginning. My name is Ryan, and 8 months ago I was desperately searching for an affordable place to live in the city. Fresh out of a long-term relationship with my girlfriend Emma, I needed somewhere to rebuild my life that didn't remind me of everything I'd lost. That's when I found the listing: spacious two-bedroom apartment, roommate needed, Maple Street. The rent was reasonable, the location was perfect, and when I met Jake for the viewing, something just clicked. Jake was easy. That's the best word I can use to describe him. Easy to talk to, easy to be around, easy to laugh with. He was 28, 2 years older than me, with dark hair that always looked like he'd just run his fingers through it, warm brown eyes, and this smile that made you feel like you were in on some private joke. "So, I should probably tell you up front," Jake had said during that first meeting, leaning against the kitchen counter with a mug of coffee. "I'm gay. If that's going to be a problem, better to know now." I'd shrugged, trying to seem cooler than I felt. "No problem at all, man. I just need a place to crash and someone who won't eat my leftovers." He'd laughed at that. God, I remember that laugh. It was genuine, unguarded, and it filled the apartment with warmth. "Then I think we're going to get along just fine," he'd said, extending his hand. And we did. We got along better than fine. Those first 8 months flew by in a blur of comfortable routine. Jake worked as a graphic designer from home, which meant he was usually around, headphones on, lost in whatever project he was working on. I worked in marketing at a firm downtown, so I'd leave early and come home to find him still at his desk, bathed in the glow of his dual monitors. We developed rhythms. I'd cook on Mondays and Thursdays, he'd cook on Tuesdays and Fridays. We'd order takeout on Wednesdays and fend for ourselves on weekends. We'd watch movies on Friday nights, our unspoken tradition, taking turns picking what to watch. Jake introduced me to films I'd never heard of: quiet indie dramas, foreign films with subtitles, documentaries about things I didn't know I cared about. I'd make him sit through action movies and comedies, and he'd pretend to hate them while laughing at all the jokes. "You have the taste of a teenage boy," he'd tease. "And you have the taste of a pretentious film student," I'd shoot back. But it was never mean. Everything with Jake was light, comfortable, safe. He'd tell me about the guys he was dating, though none of them ever seemed to last more than a few weeks. I'd tell him about my attempts to get back into the dating scene, the awkward first dates, the women who seemed interested until they weren't. "You're trying too hard," Jake said one night, both of us on the couch with beers, some indie film playing that I'd already lost the plot of. "You're still not over Emma." "I am over Emma," I'd protested. He'd given me this look, this knowing, gentle look that made me feel transparent. "Ryan, you compare every woman you meet to her. That's not being over someone." He was right, of course. Jake was usually right about these things, about people, about emotions. He had this way of seeing through the walls people put up, of understanding what they were really feeling even when they didn't understand it themselves. I didn't know it then, but that same intuition would eventually turn its focus on me in a way that would change everything. It started so gradually that I didn't even notice it happening. Small things at first: the way I'd catch myself looking forward to coming home, knowing Jake would be there. The way I'd linger a little longer in the kitchen while he was cooking, even though I had work to do in my room. The way I'd started to notice details about him I'd never paid attention to before. Like how he always made 2 cups of coffee in the morning, one for him and one for me, even before I woke up. How he'd do the dishes on my nights to cook without being asked. How he remembered that I hated cilantro and would always leave it out of recipes when it was his turn to make dinner. I told myself it was just appreciation for a good roommate. Everyone would be happy to live with someone so considerate, right? But then there were other things I couldn't explain away so easily. The way my heart would do this weird skip when I'd hear his laugh from the other room. The way I'd find excuses to touch him, a hand on his shoulder when I was passing by, a playful shove when he made a joke at my expense. The way I'd started to really look at him, noticing the curve of his neck, the way his t-shirts fit across his shoulders, the concentration on his face when he was lost in his work. One night, about 6 months into living together, Jake had a date. I was on the couch, pretending to watch TV, when he came out of his room dressed up: dark jeans, a fitted button-up shirt that was a deep blue, hair actually styled for once. "How do I look?" he'd asked, doing a little turn. And I'd felt something twist in my chest, something I couldn't name, something that felt uncomfortably like jealousy. "You look great," I'd managed. "He's a lucky guy." Jake had smiled, but there was something searching in his eyes, like he was looking for something in my expression. "Thanks, Ryan, don't wait up." I'd stayed awake anyway, restless, unable to focus on anything. When I heard his key in the lock around midnight, I'd felt relief flood through me, relief that he was home, and something else, something that whispered that maybe the date hadn't gone well. Back early, I'd called out, trying to sound casual. Jake had appeared in the living room doorway, already pulling off his shoes. "Yeah, it was fine, just not really a connection, you know." "Sorry, man." He'd shrugged, but he was smiling. "It happens, mind if I join you?" We'd stayed up until 3 in the morning, talking about nothing and everything, and I'd felt happier than I had all evening. Happier than I'd been in months, maybe. That should have been my first real clue, but I was still so deep in denial that I didn't let myself see it. Things came to a head about 2 weeks before the incident that changed everything. Jake had been quiet for a few days, withdrawn in a way that wasn't like him. I'd catch him staring at me sometimes, this unreadable expression on his face, but whenever I'd ask if something was wrong, he'd just shake his head and change the subject. Then one Friday night, our movie night, he'd been different, distant. We were watching some action movie I'd picked, but I could tell he wasn't paying attention. He was sitting on his end of the couch, but he seemed miles away. "Okay, what's going on?" I'd finally asked, pausing the movie. "What do you mean? You've been weird all week. Is everything okay? Did something happen?" Jake had been quiet for a long moment, and I watched him struggle with something, his jaw working like he was trying to decide whether to speak or stay silent. "Can I ask you something?" he'd finally said, his voice careful. "Of course." "Have you ever questioned yourself, your sexuality, I mean?" The question had hit me like a physical thing, and I'd felt my defenses slam into place immediately. "What? No, why would you ask that?" He'd looked away, and I could see the regret on his face. "Never mind, forget I said anything." "Jake." "Seriously, Ryan, forget it, I shouldn't have asked." The rest of the evening had been awkward, stilted. We'd finished the movie in near silence, and I'd gone to bed feeling unsettled, Jake's question echoing in my mind. "Have you ever questioned yourself?" No, I hadn't. I'd never questioned it because I'd never had a reason to question it. I liked women. I'd always liked women. I'd had girlfriends, relationships, attraction that felt straightforward and uncomplicated. But lying in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Couldn't stop thinking about why Jake had asked. Couldn't stop thinking about the look on his face when he'd asked it. And I couldn't stop thinking about how I'd been feeling lately. About the jealousy when Jake went on dates. About how much I looked forward to seeing him every day. About how my pulse quickened when he'd brush past me in the kitchen or when our knees would touch on the couch during movie night. No, I pushed the thoughts away. I was just confused, still recovering from Emma appreciating a good friend, that was all. But a small voice in the back of my mind whispered, "Are you sure?" It was a Tuesday afternoon, about 2 weeks after that uncomfortable conversation. I'd come home from work early, planning to change and hit the gym, when I found Jake in the living room, looking frustrated. "Hey," I said, dropping my bag by the door, "you okay?" He looked up and his face brightened when he saw me. It always did that, I realized, like I was someone he was genuinely happy to see. "Oh, thank God you're home. I need your help with something." "Sure, what's up?" "I'm trying to rearrange my room and I need to know if my bed will fit against the other wall, but I can't get an accurate measurement by myself. Would you mind helping me measure?" It seemed like such a simple, innocent request. How could I have known that agreeing to help would crack open everything I'd been trying so hard not to see? "Yeah, of course, let me just change real quick." I went to my room and swapped my work clothes for a t-shirt and jeans, then grabbed my phone and headed to Jake's room. I'd been in Jake's room plenty of times before, but always briefly, dropping off laundry he'd mixed with mine, asking him a quick question, borrowing a phone charger. I'd never really been asterisk in it, if that makes sense, never really paid attention to the space. But now, stepping inside with the intention of staying for more than a minute, I actually looked around. It was so, Jake, One wall was exposed brick which he decorated with framed movie posters and prints, artistic ones, not the commercial kind you'd find at a chain store. His desk was organized chaos, sketches and design printouts carefully pinned to a corkboard above his dual monitors. His bed was unmade in that deliberate, cozy way that looked inviting rather than messy. And it smelled like him. That scent I'd become so familiar with: clean laundry, the specific body wash he used, and something else that was just inherently Jake. "So I'm thinking if I move the bed to this wall," Jake was saying, gesturing to the wall opposite where it currently sat, "I can put my desk by the window and get better natural light for work." "Makes sense," I said, pulling out my phone to use the measuring app. "Let's see what we're working with." We spent the next 20 minutes measuring the room, the bed frame, the desk, all the furniture that would need to be rearranged. And it was fine. It was normal, just two roommates helping each other out. Except it wasn't fine because I was hyper-aware of every single moment. Every time Jake leaned close to check a measurement. Every time our hands brushed when we were holding opposite ends of his measuring tape. Every time he'd flash me that grateful smile and say, "I really appreciate this, Ryan." My heart was pounding and I kept trying to convince myself it was from the physical activity of moving around the room, but I knew better. I knew better. "Okay, I think we got everything," Jake said finally, sitting down on the edge of his bed with a satisfied sigh. He patted the space next to him. "Sit for a sec, I wanted to talk to you about something." And there it was, that feeling of free fall, like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't take back. I sat down next to him, maintaining what I told myself was a casual distance, trying to ignore the way the mattress dipped slightly, bringing us a little closer together. Jake was quiet for a moment, his hands clasped between his knees, staring at the floor. I could see him gathering his courage, the same way I'd seen him do before that awkward conversation 2 weeks ago. "I need to tell you something," he said finally, his voice quiet. "And I need you to just let me get it all out before you say anything, okay?" My mouth went dry. "Okay." He took a deep breath and I watched his chest rise and fall, watched him steel himself for whatever he was about to say. "I think I'm falling for you," he said, the words coming out in a rush. "Actually, no, I know I'm falling for you. I have been for months now and I've tried to ignore it, tried to push it down, tried to date other people to get over it, but it's not working. You're my roommate, you're straight, and this is probably the worst idea in the world, but I can't keep pretending I don't feel this way." He finally looked up at me and I could see the vulnerability in his eyes, the fear, but also something like relief at finally saying it out loud. "I like coming home and knowing you'll be here," he continued, the words flowing faster now like a dam had broken. "I like cooking for you and watching terrible action movies with you and hearing about your day. I like the way you laugh at your own jokes before you even finish telling them. I like how you always make sure I've eaten when I get too focused on work. I like everything about you, and I know this is going to make everything weird, and if you want to move out I'll understand, but I couldn't keep lying to you, you deserve to know the truth." The room fell silent except for the sound of both of us breathing. Jake was looking at me with this mix of hope and terror, waiting for me to say something, to react, to do anything. And I should have had a response ready, should have known what to say. But every thought in my head had evaporated, leaving only one truth that I'd been running from for months. I felt the same way. "Ryan," Jake's voice was small, uncertain, "please say something." I started, but my voice came out strangled. I cleared my throat and tried again. "I don't know what to say." I watched his face fall, watched him start to retreat into himself, and suddenly I couldn't let him think I was rejecting him. Couldn't let him sit there believing he'd made a mistake by being honest. "No, wait," I said quickly, reaching out without thinking and grabbing his hand. The touch sent electricity through me and I saw Jake's eyes widen at the contact. "That came out wrong. I mean, I don't know what to say because I've been trying really hard not to think about this, about you, about us." "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. And suddenly everything came pouring out, all the thoughts I'd been suppressing, all the feelings I'd been denying. "I mean that I think about you constantly, that I get jealous when you go on dates, that I've been looking forward to movie nights more than anything else in my week, that I've been noticing things about you that I shouldn't be noticing, feeling things I've never felt before, and it terrifies me because I don't know what it means." Jake's hand tightened around mine. "What does it feel like?" I struggled to find the words. Like everything is different when you're around, like I'm more myself with you than I've ever been with anyone, like the idea of you being with someone else makes me want to punch something. Like I want to know everything about you, every thought, every dream, every secret, like. I stopped, my breath catching as I finally let myself look at him, really look at him. At the way he was watching me with those warm brown eyes, his lips slightly parted, hope written across every feature. Like I might be falling for you too, I finished quietly, and I have no idea what to do about that. You don't have to do anything, Jake said softly. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. I just needed you to know how I felt. I needed to be honest. I trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. Never been with a guy, never questioned my sexuality, never felt this way before, all of it was true. I know, Jake said, and I'm not asking you to be anything you're not. If you're just figuring things out and it doesn't go anywhere, that's okay. I'd rather have you in my life as a friend than not have you at all. But even as he said it, I could see the longing in his eyes, the want that he was trying so hard to keep contained. And something in me just broke, or maybe it finally came together. All the denial, all the fear, all the confusion crystallized into one crystal clear thought. I wanted him. I wanted to know what it felt like to kiss him, to hold him, to be with him in all the ways I'd been desperately trying not to think about. What if I don't want to just be friends? I heard myself say, my voice rough with emotion. Jake's breath hitched. Ryan. I've spent the last few months trying to convince myself that what I was feeling wasn't real, I continued, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. That I was just confused or lonely or processing the breakup with Emma. But that's not what this is. This is you. It's been you for a while now, and I've been too scared to admit it. Are you sure? Jake asked, and I could hear the tremor in his voice, the desperate hope he was trying not to give in to. Because I don't want you to do something you'll regret. I don't want to be an experiment or a... I kissed him. I didn't plan it, didn't think it through. I just leaned in and pressed my lips to his, cutting off whatever he was about to say, and suddenly nothing else mattered. For a second, Jake went completely still, like he couldn't believe it was happening. But then he made this small sound in the back of his throat and kissed me back, his free hand coming up to cup my face, and it was like every cliché I'd ever rolled my eyes at suddenly made perfect sense. It did feel like fireworks, like coming home, like every sappy, romantic thing I'd never understood before. His lips were soft, gentle at first, questioning, but when I didn't pull away, when I pressed closer, my hand sliding into his hair, the kiss deepened, became more urgent, more real. I'd been kissed before. I'd had relationships, make-out sessions, moments of passion, but nothing had ever felt like this. Like every nerve ending in my body was suddenly alive. Like I was discovering something fundamental about myself that I'd been missing my entire life. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Jake rested his forehead against mine. Wow, he breathed. Yeah, I agreed because I couldn't form any other words. My mind was reeling, trying to process what had just happened, what it meant, what came next. Are you okay? Jake asked, pulling back slightly to look at me, his hand still cradling my face. Was I okay? I just kissed my male roommate. I just admitted I had feelings for him. I just turned my entire understanding of myself upside down. I think so, I said honestly. I'm kind of freaking out, but in a good way. Is that possible? Jake laughed and the sound eased some of the tension in my chest. Yeah, that's possible, that's very possible. I don't know what I'm doing, I admitted. I don't know how to do this. We'll figure it out, Jake said, his thumb stroking my cheek in a way that made my heart stutter. We don't have to have all the answers right now, we can take this as slow as you need. What if I'm terrible at this? I asked, voicing one of the fears swirling in my mind. What if I don't know how to be what you need? Ryan, look at me. I met his eyes, saw the tenderness there, the patience, the understanding. You're already what I need, he said simply. Just be yourself, that's all I want, that's all I've ever wanted. And just like that, some of the fear loosened its grip on my chest. Because he was right, I'd been myself with Jake for 8 months. I knew how to be around him, how to make him laugh, how to comfort him when he was stressed about work, how to coexist in the same space. This was just more, an extension of what we already had. We sat there on his bed for a while longer, not talking much, just existing in the same space with this new understanding between us. Jake had laced his fingers through mine, and I found myself staring at our joined hands, marveling at how natural it felt. "What are you thinking?" Jake asked softly. "I'm thinking about how I'm going to tell my family," I said with a half laugh. "My mom is going to have so many questions." "We don't have to tell anyone yet," Jake said quickly. "This can just be ours for now until you're ready." But I shook my head. "No, I think I want to, not right away but eventually. I don't want to hide you." I felt Jake squeeze my hand, and when I looked at him, his eyes were shining. "What about work?" I continued, my mind jumping from one concern to another. "And dadding, wait, are we dadding? Is that what this is?" "I'd like it to be," Jake said, "but only if you want that too." "I do," I said, and was surprised by how certain I sounded. "I really do, I need you to be patient with me. I'm going to mess up, probably a lot. I'm going to have moments where I freak out about what this all means. I might." "Ryan," Jake's voice was firm but kind. "Breathe, we're in this together, okay? Whatever comes, we'll handle it together. And yes, I'll be patient. I've been falling for you for months while living in the same apartment. I think I've proven I can be patient." I laughed, feeling some of the anxiety ease. Fair point. "Besides," he continued, a smile playing at his lips, "I'm not exactly an expert at relationships either. My longest one lasted 3 months. We're both going to be figuring this out as we go." We ended up ordering pizza and eating it in Jake's room, sitting on his bed like we were afraid that if we left, the spell would break and we'd have to go back to pretending this wasn't happening. We talked about everything. About when Jake first realized he had feelings for me. Apparently it was about 2 months in, when I'd made him soup when he had the flu. About when I started feeling differently about him. I couldn't pinpoint an exact moment, it had been so gradual. About our fears, our hopes, what we wanted this to look like. "I'm scared I'm going to be bad at this," I admitted at one point. "The physical stuff, I mean. I've never been with a guy and I don't want to disappoint you." Jake set down his pizza slice and turned to face me fully. "You're not going to disappoint me, and for the record, we don't have to do anything physical beyond what we're both comfortable with. We can take things as slow as you need. There's no timeline here." "But you've been out for years," I said. "You know what you want, what you like. I'm just figuring it out." "So we'll figure it out together," Jake said simply. "Ryan, I don't have some checklist of things we need to do for this to be a real relationship. Being with you, talking to you, spending time with you, that's what matters to me. Everything else is just extra." Looking at him, I felt a surge of affection so strong it almost hurt. "How are you so understanding about all this?" He smiled. "Because I remember what it was like when I first came out, how scary it was, how uncertain. I had people who were patient with me, who let me figure things out at my own pace. I want to be that person for you." The next few days were surreal. We didn't change much about our routine. We still did our alternating cooking schedule, still watched movies on Friday nights, still went about our daily lives. But everything felt different because now there were these moments. Moments where Jake would kiss me on the forehead as he passed by while I was working at the kitchen table. Moments where I'd find excuses to be near him, to touch his shoulder or his hand or his back. Moments where we'd catch each other staring and just smile, this secret between us. We hadn't told anyone yet. I wasn't ready, and Jake respected that. But I found myself wanting to talk about it, wanting to process what was happening with someone outside of the situation. Finally, 5 days after that Tuesday, I called my best friend Marcus. "Dude, it's been forever," Marcus said when he picked up. "What's going on? How's the roommate situation working out?" I took a deep breath. "Actually, that's kind of what I wanted to talk to you about." I told him everything. About the past few months, about my growing feelings for Jake, about the confession, about the kiss. Marcus listened without interrupting, and when I finished, there was a long silence. "Say something," I finally said. "I'm just processing," Marcus said slowly. "So you're what, gay now?" "I don't know," I admitted. "Maybe, or bi. I haven't really figured out the labels yet. I just know that I have feelings for Jake and they're real, and I want to see where this goes." "But you've always dated women." "I know. And you never mentioned being attracted to guys before." "I know. So this is new." "Very new," I confirmed. which is why I'm kind of freaking out and needed to talk to someone. Another pause and then Marcus laughed. Man, I did not see this coming, but you know what? If Jake makes you happy, then I'm happy for you. You've been different the last few months, lighter somehow. I guess now I know why. Relief flooded through me. Really, you're okay with this? Why wouldn't I be? You're my best friend. I want you to be happy. And from the way you talk about this guy, he clearly makes you happy. We talked for another hour, Marcus asking questions, me trying to answer them as best I could. When we finally hung up, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. I told Jake about it that night, and he pulled me into a hug that felt like coming home. Thank you for telling him, Jake murmured into my hair. I know that wasn't easy. It was easier than I thought it would be, I admitted. I think I'm ready to start telling people, not everyone, not yet, but the people who matter. Of course, it wasn't all smooth sailing. There were hard moments, times when reality crashed back in and I had to confront what this all meant. Like when I ran into an ex-girlfriend at the grocery store and she asked if I was seeing anyone. I'd frozen, panic flooding through me before managing to say, yeah, actually it's new. She'd smiled and said she was happy for me, and I'd walked away feeling like a coward for not being more specific. Or like the night I'd been scrolling through social media and saw photos from a former college friend's wedding. All the heterosexual couples, the traditional setup, and I'd felt this moment of vertigo thinking about how my life was diverging from the path I'd always assumed I'd take. Jake found me sitting on the couch, my phone in my lap, staring at nothing. Hey, he said softly, sitting next to me, what's wrong? I tried to explain it, the feeling of my whole identity shifting, of not knowing who I was anymore or where I fit. I thought I had my life figured out, I said. I was going to meet a woman, get married, have kids, follow this script that I'd had in my head forever, and now that script doesn't work anymore and I don't know what the new one looks like. Jake was quiet for a moment and then he said, you don't need a script. Life isn't a movie with a predetermined plot. It's messy and complicated and full of surprises. The goal isn't to follow some predetermined path, it's to be honest about who you are and what you want. But what if I want the traditional things? I asked. Marriage, kids, all of it, is that even possible now? Of course it is, Jake said firmly. Ryan, being with me doesn't mean giving up on those dreams. Gay couples get married, have kids, build lives together. The only thing that changes is the gender of your partner. Everything else is still possible. You want those things? I asked, looking at him. He nodded. Someday, yeah, I want a partner, a family, a home that's ours. I want Friday night movie marathons and arguments about whose turn it is to do the dishes and lazy Sunday mornings. I want all of it. With me, I whispered. Jake smiled. I'd like it to be with you if we get there, but we don't have to figure that out tonight. We can just take this one day at a time. I told my parents 3 weeks after Jake and I got together. I drove home for the weekend, my stomach in knots the entire drive, and sat them down in the living room where I'd grown up. I need to tell you something, I'd started, my voice shaking. My mom had immediately looked concerned. Are you okay? Is everything all right? Yeah, I'm fine, better than fine actually. I'm seeing someone I really care about. That's wonderful, honey, my mom had said, smiling. What's her name? This was it, the moment of truth. His name is Jake, I'd said quietly. He's my roommate and I'm falling in love with him. The silence that followed felt like it lasted forever. I watched my parents process the information, saw the surprise, the confusion, the million questions forming. My dad spoke first. You're gay. I don't know, maybe, or bi. I'm still figuring out the labels. I just know that I have real feelings for Jake and I wanted you to know. My mom had tears in her eyes and my heart sank until she spoke. How long have you known? Not long, a few weeks, it's all pretty new. And this Jake, my dad said slowly, he treats you well. I nodded, feeling my own eyes start to water. He's amazing, Dad. He's kind and funny and patient, and he makes me happy in a way I've never been before. My mom stood up and pulled me into a hug. Then we're happy for you, sweetheart. Thank you for telling us. The rest of the weekend was full of questions, some awkward, some touching, some that I didn't have answers to yet. But they were trying, making an effort to understand, and that meant everything. I called Jake on the drive home, needing to hear his voice. How did it go? He asked immediately. Good, really good actually. They have questions and I think it's going to take some time for them to fully wrap their heads around it, but they were supportive. I'm so proud of you, Jake said softly. I know that took a lot of courage. I want you to meet them, I said suddenly. Maybe not right away, but soon. I want them to see why I'm doing this, why you're worth it. I could hear the smile in Jake's voice. I'd love that. As the weeks turned into months, Jake and I found our rhythm as a couple. We learned each other's bodies, yes, but more importantly, we learned how to communicate, how to navigate disagreements, how to be partners in the truest sense. We had our first fight about 2 months in, something stupid about dishes left in the sink. But instead of letting it fester, we talked through it, figured out the real issue. We were both stressed about other things and taking it out on each other, and came out stronger on the other side. We started going on actual dates, to movies and restaurants and museums. At first, I was hyper-aware of being two men together in public, worried about what people would think, but Jake never seemed bothered and gradually I relaxed into it. I loved the little intimacies, the way Jake would reach for my hand when we were walking, the way he'd kiss me goodbye in the morning before I left for work, the way we'd curl up together on the couch fitting together like puzzle pieces. I loved the big things too, the way he supported my career goals, celebrating my wins and commiserating over my losses. The way he opened up about his own fears and dreams, letting me see all of him. The way he made me laugh even on the hardest days. But mostly, I loved the ordinary moments. Making coffee together in the morning, arguing over what to have for dinner, working in comfortable silence, him at his desk, me on the couch with my laptop. These were the moments that made up a life together, and I treasured every single one. 6 months into our relationship, Jake and I were lying in bed one Sunday morning, the kind of lazy morning where neither of us had anywhere to be. Can I ask you something? Jake said, his fingers tracing patterns on my chest. Always. Do you ever regret it? Not the relationship, but everything that came with it. Coming out, changing how people see you, all of it. I thought about it seriously before answering. No, I said finally. I won't lie and say it's always been easy. There have been hard moments, awkward conversations, times when I wished things were simpler, but regret it? Never, because all of that led me to this, to you, to us, and I wouldn't trade this for anything. Jake was quiet for a moment. Even if you could go back, if you could have lived your whole life without this complication. Jake, you're not a complication, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I shifted so I could look at him properly. Where is this coming from? He sighed. I ran into an ex yesterday when I was out getting coffee. He said something about how I should feel guilty for turning you gay, for ruining your chances at a normal life. And I know it's bullshit, but it got in my head, you know. Anger flared in my chest, not at Jake, but at whoever had made him doubt us. First of all, you didn't turn me anything. You didn't make me fall for you. I did that all on my own. And second, this is my normal life. This is the life I chose, and I would choose it again and again. Promise? Jake asked, his voice small in a way I rarely heard. I leaned in and kissed him, soft and sweet, and full of every emotion I felt for this man. I promise, I said when I pulled back. You're stuck with me, Jake, for as long as you'll have me. He smiled, and it was like the sun coming out from behind clouds. Forever sounds good. Yeah, I agreed, settling back into his arms. Forever sounds perfect. Epilogue 1 year later. We're still in the same apartment on Maple Street, though Jake's room is now our room. We converted my old room into a home office that we share, our desks side by side. Last month we had both sets of parents over for dinner. It was awkward at first, but by the end of the night our moms were exchanging recipes and our dads were bonding over their shared love of bad action movies. I still have moments where I marvel at how much my life has changed. How a simple request to help measure a room led to measuring the depth of my own capacity for love, for growth, for stepping outside the box I'd built around myself. But mostly I just feel grateful. Grateful for Jake's courage in being honest about his feelings. Grateful for my own courage in accepting mine. Grateful for every moment, every challenge, every beautiful ordinary day we get to spend together. Last week I was telling someone new about how Jake and I got together, and they asked what made me realize I was in love with him. I thought about that afternoon in his bedroom, the measurements we took, the conversation that followed. I thought about the kiss, the way everything clicked into place, the feeling of finally being honest with myself. But the real answer was simpler than that. It was everything, I said. Every small moment, every conversation, every time he made me laugh or made me think or made me feel seen. It wasn't one big moment, it was 1,000 little ones that added up to this one undeniable truth: I loved him and I wanted to build a life with him. That night, lying in bed with Jake beside me, his steady breathing filling the quiet room, I thought about that measuring tape we'd used all those months ago. We'd been measuring his room, trying to figure out if furniture would fit, making sure everything would work in the new arrangement. But really, we'd been measuring something much more important: the space in our hearts, the capacity for love we didn't know we had, the possibility of a future we never imagined. And the measurements, they were perfect. Everything fit exactly as it was supposed to. The end.